What is the name of your third member?
Dieter.
Mr. Dieter. That's the name at the bottom. It's his device. Right, ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys and assembled company, welcome to the World Storytelling Cafe. And it's Friday night, so it's children's night. It's children's stories, and we've got more than stories tonight. We've got music, mayhem, and wondrousness with Ian Douglas. Round of applause, please. Thank you. Gary Brilliance.
Hey.
And Dida.
Hey.
And could we have a magnificent round of applause for all three of them?
Hey.
So, the stage is yours. Louis is here. We couldn't start before Louis was here, but he's here now, so we can start. So the stage is yours.
Are we on?
No, well, we are on.
Are we on?
Playing a bit of a snippet of song for Louis.
You're on. It started. The show has started. The curtain is up. It's yours.
How are we going down?
We're going down like a sinking ship. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and welcome to the World Storytelling Cafe. And we hope that you are all well behind your screens in your various homes across the globe. And as John said, my name's Ian, the storyteller. My good friend Gary Gacko Bridgens, and the one and only Mr. Foppletwig is in the house, along with you guys. And we've got about an hour of silliness, stories, and a fair bit of music. So we hope you like a bit of a dance and a jig around, because we've got some of that. And talking of music, to get the old show going, every good show should have an opening song. And I think if I turn my head towards the maestro behind me, he might just have, no, that's you. We might just have a little song to kick us all off. Give us a thumbs up if you're ready for a little song to liven up the night.
Thumbs up. Sure.
Look at all those thumbs going up in the air. Hurrah! Hurrah!
Well, just talking of livening up the night, you will be aware there's still a COVID going on. We are socially distanced, and the only place we could find where we're allowed to be together was the sanctuary of a firework factory.
What could possibly go wrong?
What could possibly go wrong? Who knows? So we hope to make it to the end of our hour. And this is our opening song. It's called Vagabonds, and it goes like this here. Are you ready, boys? Okay, here we go. Let's play it nice and gentle for a Friday night. Here we go. Hello there, everyone. It's nice to meet you.
We're rolling, strolling, coming round your way.
This is Dolly, our contraption happy stories.
She's a roving and perambulant cachet.
Oh, we've got anecdotes of our and adventure.
Instruments and figurines with which to show.
And our backdrop is a lovely firework factory.
If we're not careful, then we might just explode.
Because we're vagabonds and we're coming round your way. We're rolling, strolling, showing on the road. Oh, vagabonds forever on our way. With a myriad of stories to unload.
Oh, pots and pans of properties and scenery.
These pocket holes with magic and surprise.
And each suitcase that we carry bears a legend.
The theatre is right here beneath the sky.
And so it's time to pop the lid on dear old Dolly. And to offer you our carnival talk tales. So rest back and we'll regale you with our menu. All allegories, myths and parables. Because we're vagabonds and we're coming round your way. We're rolling, strolling, showing on the road. Oh, vagabonds forever on our way. With a myriad of stories, oh so many stories, a myriad of stories to unload. There you go, ladies and gentlemen, a little opening song. and I saw a few people dancing. Oh, look at that. There's a bit of a round of applause going on as well. Hurrah. And so, where do we head now, Mr. Gacko?
Well, Mr. Douglas, you were going to tell us a story about an unfortunate incident that might damage, nay, crack something magnificent and illuminating in the sky.
That's a fine introduction, sir. So I shall step forward slightly and I shall regale you with a little story. And what made me think of this story was that, well, I live on a narrowboat, you see, and most evenings I like to take a little wander down the towpath and look up into the sky. And at the moment, well, it's just past full, but there is in the sky a beautiful orb known as the moon. And it made me think of this little story, what I would like to tell you right now. And it goes something like this. Once upon a time, a long time ago, there was a king. Now, what you need to know about this king is this king wanted to own everything in the world because he thought to himself, if I own everything in the world, I shall be the most powerful, the most successful king in all of history. And as he wished for it and as he wanted it, didn't the king get it? And the things he owned grew and grew and grew. Now, I'll tell you something about this king. This king, he had a son. His name was the prince. And if the king was boastful, if the king was greedy, the prince was twice that. And you know, every day when he went to school with his friends, he used to boast. Do you know, I'm the richest. I'm the most spoiled. I'm the most handsome prince in all the land, for my dad, the king, is the most powerful king in history. What I want, I get. But you know his friends, they listened and they listened and they listened and they grew tired of the prince boasting all the time. And so one day they decided to set him a challenge. They said to the prince, well, if your dad, the king, is the most powerful king in history, and indeed what you want you'll get, then maybe your dad could get for you the moon out of the sky. Well, suddenly the prince stopped and his mouth clamped shut and he scratched his chin for a while and he wondered, but not to be bettered by his friends. He folded his arms, he stuck out his chest, he lifted his chin like young cocky lads do, and he said, hey, my dad is the most powerful man in the world, and I'll tell you, if I ask him for the moon, he'll get it for me. Right, he said, well then prove it. Well, the prince went home to the castle, and that night he sat with his dad, the king, and he said, Father, you know how you said you're the most powerful man in the world, and what you want, you get, and what I want, you'll give me. I want you to get me the moon from the sky. Well, the king, he looked at his son and he giggled slightly and said, son, the moon from the sky? Well, I might be a powerful king, but I can't give you the moon. Well, the prince looked at his dad and said, you told me that what I want, I get. I want the moon. And if you are the most powerful man in the world, like you say you are, you'll get it from me. Well, the king, he didn't want to look wrong in his son's eyes. And he thought to himself, well, if I don't do what I've said I'll do, what would all the other kings think of me? They'll think I'm weak. And he sat that night and he pondered and he pondered and he pondered until eventually the next morning he came up with an idea. In the land that belonged to the king, there was a sorcerer, a powerful magician. And he brought the sorcerer to him, the magician, and he said, magician, I want you to answer a problem for me. My son desires the moon from the sky, and I want you to devise a way of bringing it down to earth so he can own it. Well, the sorcerer, he didn't laugh. He wanted to do everything his king asked him to. And so he sat and he thought and he thought and he thought and he said, well, here's what we'll do. In 1 month's time, there's a full moon. I'm going to build a tower all the way up like a ladder into the sky. And together, you, me, and your son will climb that tower. And you know, with the power that's in me, the magic in my hands will drag the moon down to the earth and you'll own it. So that's what happened. They spent day after day after day. And I'd like to say the king built the tower, but he didn't because he had servants and slaves. So they built one bit, one by one bit, by one bit, until eventually, after a whole month, that ladder, that tower, touched the very sky itself. And there was a great celebration as the king, he gathered together all the other kings from the world who came to watch, and great fireworks were set off in celebration. And then the hour, as the moon came across the sky, they watched until it mounted the tower itself. And then they climbed, the king, the sorcerer, and the prince, until eventually they reached the top of the tower. They stretched out their hand and they could touch the surface of the moon. Well, the sorcerer, he put his shoulder underneath the moon and he started to heave it, tried to move it so they could pull it down. But as hard as he pushed, would the moon move? Not an inch. So the king, he tried. He put his shoulder like the sorcerer as well, and they pushed and they pushed and they pushed. Would the moon move? Not even a centimeter. And the prince, he stood there and said, Dad, you told me you were the strongest king in the world, but you can't even bring the moon down. Well, get out the way and let me try. The greedy prince, the boastful prince, he went and he stood underneath that moon and he put his hands onto the surface of the moon and he started to push. Well, he heaved so hard that they noticed a crack appeared in the beautiful face of the moon, and it spread right across its surface. And still to this very day, if you look at the moon in the sky, you'll see that crack. It's turned a beautiful thing quite sour, because there's a sadness in this story. Well, as the boy pushed and the moon cracked, the tower started to wobble side by side. And they didn't notice until it was too late. And that tower, it started to tumble. And you know, as it tumbled down, the prince, he noticed that one tiny fragment of the moon broke off. And he stretched out to try and grab it, but he stretched too far. And him, his father, and the sorcerer, they tumbled down with the tower. And I've got no more to say about them, other than to tell you this. The crack in the moon still survives, and now you know why it's there. But down here on Earth, you can still find fragments of the moon. It's called moonstone, and I know it because my mum used to wear a gold ring with a moonstone in the middle of it. And it's also my birthstone, so it's quite precious to me. And that, dear friends, is the end of the story of the greedy prince who cracked the moon. I thank you. There we go. There you go. That's your first little story for this evening, ladies and gentlemen. Where are we going now, Uncle Gacko?
Well, I'm afraid to say, Mr. Douglas, we are going to a place of darkness and nightmare.
Darkness and nightmare.
We've had an adventure story about the moon itself. We've had a jolly song to kick things off a bit.
Yes.
But now it's time to darken. Now it's time to take people off on a terrifying adventure to a remote and exotic location. For I'm going to tell you the terrifying story of the green eye of the little yellow god.
Oh, I'm frightened.
A traditional music hall story it is, and usually, of course, I would perform this story with an entire cast in the greatest West End theatres. But tonight, I'm afraid we're down to our bare bones because of isolation and lockdown. So if you don't mind, you two will be my cast of characters.
Oh, I don't mind at all.
And I shall be the orchestra.
Oh,
so,
the orchestra.
The first character is a brave soldier. His name is Mad Carew. And as you've got a green shirt on already, Peter, I will make you the brave soldier. I'll just bring my box of wardrobe props.
I'm very brave as well, you know.
He's very brave. Here's your brave soldier's hat. If you pop that on and look into the camera, and if you've got to do it the other way around, you're not a milkman. That's it. And no, the other way around. So the peak faces your audience there. That's it.
Ooh.
And if you give everybody out there in the internet land a salute, they will all salute you back. Try that. Marvellous. Now, the brave soldier was, of course, in love. And he was in love with a beautiful woman.
Oh, and we got one.
The Colonel's daughter, which will be performed by you, Mr. Douglas. I do have a costume for you. There you are. If you just pop that on and make sure you gel your hands afterwards. There we are. Now, as you can see, she was a beautiful woman. Say hello to everybody, beautiful woman.
Hello!
She was slightly more beautiful than that.
Hello!
That's right. She was posh.
Hello!
That's the one. She was posh.
Can I just stop it for a moment?
Certainly.
I don't have to kiss this lady, do I?
Yeah, usually at the end you might be lucky enough, but in these days of social distancing, I'm afraid you'll have to go without, which I'm sure is the only reason why you wanted the part in the first place. I will be the orchestra in this particular story. It's a song story, of course. It's called The Green Eye of the Little Yellow God. Now, the last character is the little god himself, a terrifying monster with but one eye in the center of his forehead, a jewel it was, an emerald. And everybody in the audience, you can be the monster. So whenever I tell you, you all have to put your claws out like this and make a terrifying monster noise. You go, rah, rah. And I'm sure the boys will help too.
I don't think I actually heard anything saying
I'll try again. I'll tune the guitar.
Go on. Everybody get your claws out. Let's have a look at that. Come on, let's see your claws. Have you got your claws? Come on, let's see your claws. You ready? After three, we'll do a big roar. A one, a two, a three. Hurrah! Very nice, very nice.
Are you happy with the audience interaction?
Yes.
Okay, here we go. So the story is called The Green Eye of the Little Yellow God. It goes like this. There's a one-eyed yellow idol to the north of Kathmandu that you all go rah, rah. There's a little marble cross below the town, and there's a broken-hearted woman. Oh. She's more broken-hearted than that. Oh. There's a broken-hearted woman tends the grave of Mad Karoo. Give them a salute, they'll all salute back.
Oh, I was dead.
You are at the end. Oh. Just for now, give them a salute. And the little god forever gazes down. That's you all go round. Now, she was known as Mad Karoo. Oh, sorry, he. He was known as Mad Karoo by the subs of Kathmandu. He was hotter than he felt inclined to tell. Oh, very nice. Yes, very hot indeed. Though for all his foolish pranks, he was worshipped in the ranks. That's you all. You can all go. Oh. And the Colonel's daughter smiled on him as well.
Hello, sweetie.
I think they're enjoying this performance too. Well, he had loved her all along with the passion of the strong. The fact that she loved him was plain to all. She was nearly 21. Or thereabouts. And arrangements had begun to celebrate her birthday with a ball. Well, he wrote to ask what present she would like from Mad Karoo, and they met next day as he dismissed the squad. Give him a salute back. Then, jokingly, she told him that, this is your line, darling. He said, nothing else will do.
Nothing else will do.
You what? The little green eye of the god. Well, the night before the dance, Mad Karoo seemed in a trance. Very good, yes. Don't mask me, darling. Put your arms down a bit, that's it. They chuffed him as they puffed on their cigars. But for once he failed to smile, and he stood alone a while and went out into the night beneath the stars. beneath the stars. That's it, you're back in it now. He returned before the dawn, with his shirt and tunic torn, and a gash across his temple dripping red.
Wrong breath.
He slept through all the day on the colonel's daughter, socially distanced, watched beside his bed. He woke at last and asked if she would bring his tunic through. Tunic's like a jacket thing, just mime it for now. Well, she did so, and he thanked her with a nod. Then he bade her search the pockets, saying, "Ooh, that's from Mad Carew. It was the little green eye of the god." Well, she upbraided Carew in the way that women do. You've got to be very angry with him.
Oh, you jolly bad boy!
That's it, with a wag of the finger. Oh. She upbraided Carew in the way that women do, though both her eyes were strangely hot and wet. Well, she wouldn't take the stone, and Mad Carew, well, you've got to give me back, you've got to rub it on your jeans first. She wouldn't take the stone, and Mad Carew was left alone with a jewel that he chanced his life to get. Well, the ball was very tight, that still and tropic night. She thought of him and hastened to his room. And as she crossed the barrack square, she could hear the dreamy air of a waltz tune softly stealing through the gloom. Well, his door lay open wide, with silver moonlight shining through. The floor was wet and slippery where she trod. Now this is your big moment now, Diggy. You've got to do your stunts. Here we go. It's a terrifying ending. Here we go. An ugly knife lay buried in the heart of Mad Carew.
He's going! He's going!
He's going.
He's going!
Oh, he's going down!
He's going!
He's going down!
He's going! Oh, what? I'll brick on it again.
Get down! Get down! Get down! Get down! This was the vengeance of that little yellow god. Well, that place is for the finale, everybody. Here we go. There's a one-eyed yellow idol to the north of Kathmandu that you all go round. The town, and there's a broken-hearted woman tends the grave of Mad Carew. You are dead now.
Oh. Well, get back on the floor.
No, just do the lips thing. No, not the kissing.
No! Well, what's dead? Dead! No, dead with lips. There's no dead.
That's it. And the little god forever gazes down. That's you. There we go. Oh, well, I'm sure that made sense to everybody.
I think I've reached my calling. I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. That cap's ruined my lockdown hair. I think I make a much better woman than I do a man. Right, where are we going now, boys?
Well, Mr. Douglas, my list tells me, carefully designed list to feature variety of music. You're going to tell us an even more sad story.
Oh,
think about
let me introduce
a long gone. Yeah.
Are you ready for another little story, boys and girls? Would that be a good thing? Give us a little thumbs up if it's time for a tale. It is, right. I think Louis thinks it is, definitely. Here we go. A little story for you, ladies and gentlemen, as Dieter appears in the corner of the screen, fiddling with the technology as we speak. Here's a sad little story for you that turns good in the end. So if it feels a bit sad, don't you worry. But this is a really old story, and I think it's very, very beautiful. And being as this is it Friday?
It is Friday.
Well, what's the time?
It's 5:05.
It's 5:05. It's crackerjack time. No, it's not. Being as this is Friday night and it's almost bedtime, especially for people like John, I think this would be a suitable bedtime story to send you off to your beds. Not quite yet, but here we go. Once upon a time, there was a king who had 3 brothers, and they lived in a kingdom that was always at war. And it didn't matter what they did, they could never find peace. People fought with each other. And you know, those fights, those battles, those wars, they went on and they went on and they went on. And the king, well, he wasn't growing any younger. He got older and older and older, as did his brothers. Now, one day, the king, he was sat on his throne looking out on his kingdom thinking, you know, I always thought as a king, I would be able to do good for people. But it doesn't seem to matter how good I am. People just don't seem to appreciate it. All they do is fight and bicker. And I don't want to live in a world like this. In fact, I don't want to live in this world anymore. And that evening, as he sat on his throne, he decided something. He decided that if he didn't want to live on earth, he would try and find heaven, because surely in heaven he would find peace and beauty. But where to find heaven, he thought to himself. Well, the next morning, still pondering on the problem, he called his three brothers to him and he explained what he was going to do. And his three brothers, well, they agreed as well. And they sat and they wondered how they could get to heaven. Well, they knew that heaven was upwards. Well, we all know that. But how to get there? Well, you might be thinking to yourself now, how do you get to heaven? And I'm sure there are many ways to do it. Maybe a rocket ship. Maybe you could fly up there on a kite. Maybe you could hitch a ride on a seagull. But they looked out their window and in the distance, they could see there was a great big mountain. And they thought, hey, if we could reach the mountains, we could climb to the very top. Because that mountain's so tall, surely it touches heaven. We climb to the top of the mountain, we climb into heaven, and we'll be happy forevermore. So that day they dressed and prepared, and they dressed in simple peasants' clothes, took off their kingly robes. They gathered a few bits of food for the journey. And the old men, they set off on their journey. They went out the castle, they went down the street and into the city, but they'd only just got to the city gates when the king looked down and realized that they'd been joined. But as he looked down, he saw there on the ground, there was a small dog. We couldn't really tell what type of dog it was. It was a bit of a mishmash, you see. And as they walked away from the city, the dog followed them. Well, the king tried to shush the dog away, but the dog just sat there and it opened its eyes, big puppy dog eyes it had. And you know, it made the king smile. And so he decided to take the dog with him. Well, they walked and they walked and they walked for many days, and the mountain just didn't seem to come any closer to them. And after many days of walking, one of his brothers said, listen, I'm so tired. I need to rest by the roadside. I can't go any further. Well, that night they sat by a fire, they shared stories. And his brother said, listen, you need to carry on the journey alone because I can't come with you. But don't worry, you've got companions. You've two other brothers and the small dog to keep you company. And that night, the king, he was so sad at the loss of his brother. But as he laid there in his bed, that little dog, it came over to him and it licked him up his cheek. And you know, it just made him smile, made him feel a bit better about the journey. So the next day, they made goodbye to their brother and they set off further down the road. And they walked and they walked and they walked for many a day until his second brother said, listen, I'm too tired for the journey. That night, they sat by the fire, they shared stories, they said goodbye to each other. And again, he was so sad as he laid in his bed, but the dog licked him up the cheek and it made him feel happy. He had a companion to carry on. And of course, his other brother. Well, the next day, they walked and they walked and they walked. Well, you can probably tell what's going to happen because his third brother said, listen, I'm too tired for the journey. And they sat that night by the fire, they shared stories until, well, during the night, he was so sad. That little dog licked him up the cheek, made him feel better. The next morning, the king, with just the dog as a companion, travelled. But you know, he'd been so concerned with losing his brothers on the road, he hadn't realised that that mountain had got so close, he was now at the foot of it. And then he looked up and he could see how steep and how high that mountain went. And he wondered to himself for the first time whether he was strong enough to get to the top of the mountain. But then he looked down at that little dog and that little dog looked at him with those beautiful puppy dog eyes. And, you know, there was strength in those eyes. And he knew whilst that dog was his companion, he'd make it. And so they travelled up and up and up, day after day after day. And every time he felt like giving up, that dog, well, it looked at him and it licked him and it kept him happy, kept his spirits up until eventually, after I don't know how many days, he reached the top of the mountain and he was so close to heaven, he could touch it. But then he turned and he looked down the mountain at the land he'd left behind, that place that was full of wars and full of arguments and battles. And you know, he was so far away from it. All he could see was the beauty of the earth, the rivers and the forests. And he thought, you know, maybe going into heaven is the wrong thing to do. But too late. Because behind him, there was a sound, a rumbling sound of thunder. And as he turned, he could see what was making that sound. It was the sky god himself, who parted the clouds, riding on a golden chariot, studded with jewels. The sky god stopped, parked up his chariot on top of the mountain and said, my son, you've made the journey and you stand on the threshold of heaven itself. And here you step on my golden chariot and I shall take you the final bit of the journey because there's room in heaven for a king like you. Well, the king went forward towards the chariot and he lifted up his foot and he put one foot on that chariot, but then he stopped and he remembered that small dog that had kept him going, being his companion, shown him friendship and loyalty and love all that long journey, and then took his foot from the chariot. And he looked at the sky god and said, thank you for offering me a place in heaven, but I couldn't possibly pass over the threshold into heaven without taking my companion, my friend, this dog. And that's when the sky god laughed. And his laugh was like a rumble of thunder. And he said, my son, you might be a wise king, but you must know this. There might be room in heaven for you, but there is no room in heaven for a dog. So the king stood. He looked down at the dog. He looked up at the sky god. He looked up at the heavens. And then with a smile on his face, he said to the sky god, well, then this has been a wasted journey. Because if there's no room in heaven for my companion, this dog, then I don't want to be in heaven. There's no room for me either. And he turned as if to go back down the mountain. And that's when the sky god laughed, his thunder-like laugh once more. And he said, my son, stop. Because this was a test. And you've passed it. Because that dog is no dog at all. That dog is an angel that I made look like a dog to test your friendship, test your loyalty. And because you've passed that test, pick up that dog, step on my chariot and come to heaven. There's space up there for the two of you. And that's what happened. They passed over the threshold into the heavens. And to this very day, if you look up into the sky, maybe you can find the king if you look closely enough. But I can tell you exactly where to find the dog. If you go outside on a starry night with your mum or your dad or your friends who know a little bit about the stars, all you've got to do is find Orion. You'll notice Orion. It's three little stars next to each other. That's his belt. And you'll know it because you can see a little sword coming down the side of him. Orion the hunter. Well, if you follow his belt downwards, you can see it going in a slant. Further down in a direct line, you'll see one of the brightest stars in the sky. That star is called Sirius, the dog star, left behind by the story that I've just told you. And that, dear friends, is the end of that little story for you. And I think you should give yourselves a big round of applause for listening so well. Go on, there we go. And look who's just come and joined me. It looks like Uncle Gacko is behind me. What's going on now, boys?
Well, Mr. Douglas.
Yes.
We promised everybody a big Friday night show.
A big Friday night show, yes.
And here we are strangely in a firework factory. And what we thought was we would bring you some magic.
Ooh.
Life is nothing if it's not full of variety. But what we need is a magician.
Oh, yes. Do we have
what
one?
we need is somebody who can do amazing magical tricks.
Do we know anybody?
Well, we don't. But I was wondering, Dieter, Mr. Foppletwig, as this is your fireworks factory, you could adopt yourself to be that magician. Maybe if you were to leave the stage, we could bring you on in an exotic fashion.
Well, you know, fireworks are made by wizards, and this is my firework factory. And I am indeed a wizard.
Well, why don't you leave the stage and we will give you a grand entrance like you deserve.
Ooh, go on then.
Are you ready for the grand entrance of the magician? You are, right, okay, here we go then.
Okay, well, here we go. Good luck, everybody. It goes like this. Roll up, one and all.
Take a seat and stay a while.
Oh, we
A thing for you.
Yes, roll up, let us start.
Gather round yet stay apart. He's hiding behind this fancy cart.
Such wondrous things with you we'll share.
He's dishevelled yet somehow debonair.
Reeking and yet somehow refined. Well, it's time to bring him a fall.
And so, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, on this Friday night, it's time to welcome to this fireworks stage a man who really needs no introduction.
Well, you're going to give him one anyway.
I am a man who's travelled to the four corners of the British Empire.
And Alvin.
Yes, to bring you contraptions and curiosities that will bamboozle your mind.
That will tickle your taste buds.
He is the one, the only. Would you put your hands together for Mr. Poppletwig?
So
Raise your voices, raise a glass, clap your hands and slap your thighs. It's time to let the curtain rise. Poppletwig, ladies and gentlemen, hooray!
Thanks very much indeed, me lovelies. Now, as the young and gorgeous men behind me did proclaim, I am a man of wizardry and magic. And I'm about to show for you all out there across the internet world my incredible psychopathic powers.
Psychopathic! Quick, everybody, run away! Run away! He's a psycho!
Psychic.
Oh,
Psychic. Now, you probably don't quite believe that I do have psychic powers. So, in order to prove this to you all, I've brought with me a clipboard. Ooh. I bet you've never seen one of those before. And a pen. Ooh. Now, what is he going to do with this clipboard and pen? I hear you all scream. Well, I'll tell you what I'm going to do with this clipboard and pen. I'm going to extract from the mind of one of your beautiful volunteers out there an image which you yourself will conjure in your own mind, and you shall not share it with anybody else, not by verbal communication, not by email, and not by pigeon. I, Mr. Foppletwig, will extract the image from your mind purely by telekinesis, telepathesis, and Wonkajulio Mahandahaluhulihai magic. That's something I learned when I was in the jungle. Okay, now we need a volunteer out there in the audience. If you would like to be a volunteer, could you jump up and down and wave your arms and go crazy?
Jump up and down. Wave your, I think Eleanor's quite crazy.
She's very crazy. I'd like to see you go crazier if you would like to. Oh, it's not quite crazy enough.
Come on, let's see who can go crazy. There's a few bonkers people. No, I think Eleanor is pretty crazy. I think I would edge my bet, Eleanor.
I think Eleanor's just broken the chair.
She has.
With craziness.
Eleanor Hand. Is there any chance we can unmute Eleanor Hand, please?
Hi.
There she is. Right, you can speak to her.
Oh, hello, Eleanor.
That's Mummy's name.
Oh, sorry. Oh, what's your name then?
Tally.
Hallie?
Tally. With a T.
Tally.
Tally.
Oh, nice to meet you, Tally.
Quite like Tally. Never speak with strangers. Well done, yeah.
And if you do, always use your parents' names. Right. Okay, Tally. Now, I'm going to ask you to imagine anything in the world, but there must be no verbal communication between us. That means we can't be speaking. So put a zip across your lips like this, a pretend zip across the lips. And just to make absolutely sure, put a button on your lips there. Just fasten the button on your lips. And if Mum could wrap a big imaginary roll of gaffer tape around her head, excellent. How many times have you wanted to do that, I wonder? Okay. Now, Tally, I'm going to ask you to imagine any object in the universe. It can be anything at all, so long as it is a four-legged animal. Now, this animal could be a cat. This animal could be a dog. It could even be a dog. Hey, who knows what you're going to imagine? Now, what I'm going to do, Tally, is draw on this piece of paper. It's blank on both sides, just to show you I'm not cheating. And I will draw the very animal you're imagining, that four-legged animal, any animal at all, so long as it's a dog. Okay, here we go. I'm getting in the zone now.
What are you going to choose? Don't think.
Here we go. I'm drawing the body now. I'm drawing the body. Imagine a bit harder there, Tally. Imagine as though we can all see it. I'm drawing a leg. I've only got one leg. I need four legs. I've got the first two legs on there. I need another one. Here we go. We've got another one there and another leg. Now we're going to draw what I think looks like the tail. Yes, it's going to be a tail. And now, yes, I'm almost there, Tally. Here we go. Get ready. Boys, internet, I think I have it. I have drawn the very animal that Tally is imagining. Would you like to see it?
Yes.
Doesn't sound like it to me. Would you like to see it?
Yes.
Now, Tally, to share with us all and to prove that I have not been cheating whatsoever, Mum, take off the gaffer tape from round Tilly's head. Undo the zip, Tally, and take off the button and shout nice and loud for everybody at home. The animal you're imagining is
A cat.
I'm sorry, we've got some internet interference. I think you've got a bad connection. I thought you said a cat.
Yes.
Yeah, it's definitely a bad connection. There's some sort of interference. Oh yes, I'm sure she said dog.
I think there's a cat behind you. I can see it behind you. Yes, it's there. Is that cat?
It's a cat behind me.
I do. All right.
Kelly, come back.
Kelly.
She's gone now.
Okay, here we go. The big reveal. Are you ready?
She's not there.
She's not even there.
Here she is.
Can't handle the suspense.
Oh, there he is.
Here we go, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. It's Tally's cat.
It looks like a bunny, not a cat. But...
Ladies and gentlemen, how does he do it? Why does he? We don't know. I mean, a round of applause for the one, the only Lord Purple-Tree. As you probably know,
Luna's giving imaginary
it's
clap.
all about illusion. It's all about the magician wanting you to look where they want you to look. But magic isn't always about illusion. Magic can be all around us. It's capital one, Mr. Purple-Tree.
Oh.
So we've got a little song for you that celebrates not just the magic on stage, but the magic of the world. Are you ready, boys? Here we go then. I'll get the verse going. Now magic isn't always counting scouts, rabbits out of top hats, or sewing folks in arms, cups and balls, guns from up
But if you're willing to believe that things aren't always the way that we can see them, if you take a second look and read between the lines, then sometimes you might just spot a few things from both sides. And watch things closely and find the things you're hiding. If you take a look and learn, maybe you'll decide that sometimes it's all illusion. Oh yeah, it's all illusion. Oh yeah, it's all illusion. Oh yeah, it's all illusion.
Magic isn't always many suits, cause magic's all candles with nature's attributes. Animals and plants have all had change. It's a world with more and wonder, and it's often very strange. A chameleon changes colour camouflage, and pufferfish expands itself to make its body large. There's a frog in Ecuador with morphing skin. 1 second it looks sharp and spiny, then it's smooth and slick again.
But if you're willing to believe that things aren't always the way that we can see them, if you take a second look and read between the lines, then sometimes you might just spot a few things from both sides. And watch things closely and find the things you're hiding. If you take a look and learn, maybe you'll decide that sometimes it's all illusion. Oh yeah, it's all illusion. Oh yeah, it's all illusion. Oh yeah, it's all illusion.
Magic in the flowers and the trees, cause they fill the world with wonder and they help to make us breathe. A bulb sleeps underground through ice and snow, and the seed can push through concrete. It's amazing how they grow. There are healing properties in marigolds. There's a tree in California that's 5,000 years old. The flowers and the trees keep us alive, so we must work to protect them. It is folly to neglect them.
And if you're willing to believe that things aren't always the way that we perceive them, if you take a second look and read between the lines, then sometimes you might just spot a few things from both sides. And watch things closely and find the things you're hiding. If you take a look and learn, maybe you'll decide that sometimes it's all illusion. Oh yeah, it's all illusion. Oh yeah, it's all illusion. Oh yeah, it's all illusion. Willing to believe.
Willing to believe
That things aren't always the way that we see them. If you take a second look and read between the lines, then sometimes you might just spot it with things from both sides.
Oh yeah, it's all illusion.
And watch things closely and find the things hiding. If you take a look and learn,
Oh yeah, it's all
take your
illusion.
side. That sometimes it's all illusion. Oh yeah, it's all illusion. Oh yeah, it's all illusion. Oh yeah, it's all illusion. Woo! Give yourselves a round of applause for dancing. Woo! Oh, you're worn out.
Who's got time?
I don't know, what is the time?
Because the police are gonna come round this fireworks shop shortly. We better be sharp.
I know, I can smell toast burning or something.
Yeah, I think there's a bit. Have you?
Oh, 7 minutes. We've got 7 minutes.
You've got 7 minutes.
7 minutes left.
Well,
Oh, no.
can I do a story?
I think should we have a little story from Uncle Gacko? Yes, we've got some thumbs up.
It's a short one.
Oh, yeah, a little short one. Go on then.
Can I have the storytelling sit-down box?
Oh, you can have the sit-down storytelling box. There you go. I shall just socially move out the way for you.
I've never had the proper storytelling box before. You probably guessed I'm not really a proper storyteller. I normally stand at the back and play songs, but there is a story. It's a very short one. It'll get us close to our finale. And it's a story all about greed. And there's lots of greedy people in this world. There's lots of people who are very generous. But there's always been a battle between the two. And this story is all about a greedy man and a poor man. Are you ready?
Oh, yes, we're very ready.
No pressure with Mr. Douglas watching behind.
I know, the beady eye.
Story goes like this here. I hope you enjoy it. Here we go. Short one, you'll be all right. It goes like this. Are you sure you're not left a toaster on in this fireworks factory? The rich man lived at the top of an hill, but he didn't like to climb up it. He stood at the bottom and looked up at the top and thought to himself, oh, forget it. So the rich man called the poor man over and he told him to sit down. And he said, here, carry me up that hill there, son, and I'll give you £0.50, which is 50 pence. Well, the poor man, he looked him over and he said to the rich man, no, mate, you're too fat. I'll never get a bloke of your size up an hill like that. So the rich man stroked his chops and he said, I'll tell you what I'll do. For just £5, I'll sell this rusting wheelbarrow to you, and then I'll sit in the bucket and you can push me up the rise. And when we get to the top, I'll give you 50 pence. It's called free enterprise. So the poor man bought the barrow and he pushed the rich man up the mount. And fair enough, when they got to the top, the rich man gave the poor man 50 pence to settle his share of the account. But then, each night, the poor man waited. But that rich man never came. And eventually, he had to sell that wheelbarrow at a loss to a lazy, fat-chopped mystery bidder with no name. And that's the story of the poor man and the wheelbarrow. Thank you very much.
Yeah, we don't get too comfortable in that chair.
Well, now I'm going to tell you now about the 6 silly steps.
Oh, get out of that job. Well then, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, I fear we are coming towards the end of our time with you. Can I just ask before we go, have you had a nice time? Give us a thumbs up if you have. Yeah, good. We've had a nice time. Now, just before you go, I'm sure you're regulars here at this World Storytelling Cafe. And if you are regulars or you're new to it, you will notice that on the website there is a little tip button where if you've got a couple of quid or a couple of pence, you might want to pop a little bit of into the hat. That's right, little hat button. Now, any money that you put into the hat tonight for our little stories, however meagre or however generous you are, massive, yeah.
We're all massive.
Go get your parents' credit card and pop the number in there and all that sort of stuff. We're not going to take a penny of it this evening because there's a man here at the moment called Mike. You might not be able to see him, but he is here. He's been doing a marvellous job. We're very lucky here in Britain to be looked after, however meagerly, to be looked after by our welfare states. That means parents, when they're working, they give a bit of their money, what they earn, and that goes into a big hat, and it pays for things like hospitals and schools and
Jacob Rees-Mogg's hats.
And Jacob Rees-Mogg's hats and things like that. Yeah, it pays for those kind of things. But where Mike works, over in a place called Marrakesh. Marrakesh Mike, that's how we know him. Over there, they don't have that kind of thing. they don't have what's known as a welfare state system, what looks after people. So it falls to people like Mike to do it. And I know that Mike and the people he works with have been working very, very hard to try and look after the families that work for him. And they've been given lots and lots of their own money out of their own pockets to make sure that his families have got food and they've got jobs to come back to, because they've got the coronavirus just like what we've got here. So any money that comes into the hat tonight, we're going to send it straight over to Mike, even if it's just a couple of quid. I'm sure it'll go far, and it'll put a little bit of food on the plates of people over in Marrakesh. So
it's also fair to say it's the wider population as well, isn't it? Mike looks after.
Yeah, no, Mike looks after a lot of people. Yeah. So if you feel like it, and you can, or you can persuade your mum and dad to pop a couple of quid in the hat, it would go a long way to helping out Mike and whoever to support the families out in Marrakesh.
And remember, boys and girls, zeros just mean nothing. So sprinkle as many zeros in there as you like.
Yeah, yeah. Six zeros are really, really lucky, apparently. But anyway.
Well, is it time for us to ramble on, boys?
It is. It's time for us to go. So we're going to leave you on one last little song. Are you ready, Mike?
Yeah, I'm ready. So thanks for having us here in the fight. Are you sure you're not left a bit of toast?
I know, it's getting a bit smoky in here in the firework factory. What's going on?
I think we should get this song over and done with. Get outside. Here we go. Are you ready, boys?
Yeah.
We're
rambling on. We're showmen off the road. With lectures to unload, we're always rambling on. We're rambling on. We're ambulatory, with a checkered history. We're always rambling on. It's time to roll. We hope you liked our show. It's time to pack up Dolly and away. That was some mystery, some mercury, some history and herstory. And now we pack our loads and we're on the road again. We're rambling on. We're strolling steadily, peripatetically. We're always rambling on. We're rambling on. We've shared a tale or two. We've passed them on to you. And now we're rambling on. It's time to roll. We hope you liked our show. And now we pack our loads and we're on the road again. Oh yes, we're going. If you were all wealthy, sometimes sometimes Chelsea, no west, north or south, giant wood, loud and mouths to swallow. If you travel, now take it again. We're rambling on. We're rambling. Play to kings, we play to peasants, young or old, adolescents, play for lords, play for cabbies, crack, games and daddy, dusty steak, we're always rambling on. We're rambling on, join in. We're playing. If you're poor or wealthy, sometimes come up, sometimes Chelsea, east or west, north or south, shy of money, loud of mouth, lift your sparkle, lift your trap, not to gift you for the gap. We're rambling on, and so we play to kings, we play to peasants, young or old, adolescents, play for lords, we play for cabbies, grand cabbies, in Abu Dhabi, Nazi states, just if you know it, if you're brown, we're rambling on, we're rambling on, and now we're gone.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, unmute yourselves.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
What's going on in this fireworks factory?
Got some.
Oh, get the fire extinguisher! Oh, I'm fighting it!
I'm gonna ask you a question. What are those? These? Yeah, I printed that off last night.
Ladies and gentlemen, one more big round of applause for Ian, Gary, and Dina. Dina, great. Fantastic show. Amazing.
It's all right. It's not a fire. It was just Ian got his wallet out.
And thank you all for coming. You have been marvellous. As an audience, you've been marvellous. Brilliant show tonight. And thank you, Ali and Mohammed, for driving the bus, as always.
Welcome, John. Thank you, my friends.
Thank you.
Thank you, Gary. Thank you, gentlemen.
Little song for Louis. Here's your song, Louis. Louis. Oh, I have this song. Oh, yeah. Louis. Oh, I have this song. Was that all right for everybody? Did you have a nice night?
Brilliant. Thank you so much.
That was great. Thank
Well
you.
done.
Thank you, guys. That was amazing, amazing as always.
Is
that Mike?
It is Mike.
It is Mike. Thank you so much for supporting the Hurricane Cafe charity. That's wonderful. Yeah, thank you so much. It's amazing.
Well,
And if anyone's wondering how they can donate, if you're watching on Facebook or anything, if you go to the World Storytelling Cafe site, and you will see the thing for tonight, and a little hat, pop large quantities of coinage in
20
there.
quid in, at least.
We set the fire alarms off.
The fire alarm's going off.
Brilliant.
I'm slightly worried that the fire brigade is going to come out now.
Sprinklers you want to watch out for, lads.
You know, while everybody else deals with the disaster, I just tell you that what was really funny doing the show and watching the screen, there's a lady called, I haven't got my glasses, but she's got a little girl behind her wearing a red jumper. And she's obviously got just a picture of herself smiling. And I thought she was just enjoying the show for all the way through. It turns out it's just a picture of her smiling. Oh, I can see the blue flashing lights. John and Mike, I think we better go. I think the fire brigade are going to come.
Thank you.
Fire, but we made it look like it was.
We promised you mayhem.
Okay, next time it's mayhem in Marrakesh next time, chaps.
I'll see you in a field somewhere, boys.
Save the animals first.
Right, we'll sign off. We'll see you later.
Bye.
Love you all.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.
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 How do we stop?
Bye.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
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 Bye, everybody.
Bye.